2 in the morning. That's when my entire world shattered. I heard the pounding first, desperate, frantic banging that had me bolt upright in bed before my brain could process what was happening. My husband Robert was still snoring beside me, completely oblivious. But mothers? We always know when something's wrong with our children. I was already moving, throwing off the covers, running barefoot down the hallway. My hands were shaking as I reached for the doorknob. "Who is it?" I called out, but something stopped me from opening it immediately. Fear, premonition. "Mom." The voice was barely audible. "Broken, Mom." "Please, Sarah." I threw the door open and froze. My daughter Sarah stood there, if you could call it standing. She was leaning against the doorframe, barely holding herself upright. Blood dripped from a gash above her eyebrow, more blood smeared across her mouth. Her expensive silk dress, one I'd never seen before, was torn at the shoulder, revealing angry red marks on her skin, but it was her eyes that terrified me. Most empty, hollow, as if someone had disturbed her and removed everything that made her her, something I had never seen before and never wanted to see again. Complete and utter ruin. "Mom," she whispered, then her knees buckled, and she collapsed forward into my arms. Her weight nearly took us both down. I managed to catch her barely, my back screaming in protest as I took her full weight. She was limp, barely conscious, and the blood, God, there was so much blood. "Sarah, Sarah." I was screaming now, dragging her inside, leaving a trail of blood droplets across the hardwood floor I'd just cleaned that morning. Robert, get out here now." I got her to the couch, years of nursing training kicking in automatically even as my mind screamed in panic. "Check airway clear. Check pulse rapid but strong. Stop the bleeding." The gash on her forehead looked worse than it was. Head wounds always bled profusely. I pressed my hand against it, applying pressure while trying to assess the rest of her injuries. The split lip would heal. The bruises forming on her upper arms would fade. But those bruises were shaped like fingers. Someone had grabbed her hard enough to leave marks that were already turning purple-black. Someone had hurt my daughter. Robert stumbled out of the bedroom, rubbing his eyes, confused and irritated at being woken up. Then he saw Sarah, and all the color drained from his face. "What the hell happened?" His voice was strangled, barely recognizable. "I don't know yet." My hands were shaking so hard I could barely keep pressure on the wound. "Call Dr. Martinez. Tell him it's an emergency." "Tell him," my voice broke. "Tell him to hurry?" Robert was already fumbling for his phone, nearly dropping it twice before managing to unlock it. Sarah's eyes fluttered open. For a moment she just stared at me, not recognizing where she was. Then awareness crashed back, and with it pure terror. "Mom." She grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "Mom, I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you months ago. Something I was too ashamed to admit." My stomach clenched with dread. "What is it, baby? Just breathe. You're safe now." "No." She was shaking her head frantically, and I saw her wince as the movement aggravated her injuries. "I'm not safe. None of us are safe. Not anymore." "Sarah, you're not making sense. Who did this to you? Was it a robbery? An accident? Did you—" "It was David." The name hung in the air between us like a bomb waiting to explode. "David?" I repeated stupidly. "Your husband, David? He did this to you?" "No." Her voice was barely audible now. "I mean, yes, but no." "It's not, Mom. David's been having an affair. For 8 months. With his paralegal, Rebecca. She's 24 years old. And she's pregnant with his baby." I heard Robert's phone clatter to the floor. Somewhere in my peripheral vision, I saw him pick it up with trembling hands, but all my focus was on Sarah. "An affair," I said numbly. "David is having an affair. Perfect David, charming David, with his law degree from Yale and his partnership at the prestigious firm and his memberships at the country club. David who'd swept Sarah off her feet in college, who'd given her the fairy tale wedding she'd always dreamed of, who'd seemed like every mother's dream son-in-law. That David I found out 6 months ago. Sarah's words were coming faster now, tumbling over each other in her desperation to get them out. I knew something was wrong. He was working late constantly, always on his phone, always distracted. So I hired a private investigator. You hired it? Don't judge me, Mom, please. I needed to know. Tears were streaming down her face now, mixing with the blood. The pie gave me everything. Photos of them together at hotels. Credit card receipts for jewelry I never received. Phone records showing hundreds of calls and texts. And medical records confirming Rebecca's pregnancy. Robert had finally gotten through to Dr. Martinez. I could hear him explaining in a low, urgent voice, but his eyes never left Sarah. Why didn't you tell us? I asked, trying to keep my voice gentle even as rage built in my chest. Sarah, we could have helped you. We could have done what? Her laugh was bitter, broken. Gotten me a good divorce lawyer. Helped me leave him? That's what I thought too. I thought I'd confront him, show him the proof, demand a divorce, and move on with my life. What happened? Robert asked, hanging up the phone. Martinez was 5 minutes away. I confronted him tonight. At our house. I laid out all the evidence on the dining room table, the photos, the receipts, everything. I told him I knew about Rebecca and the baby, and I wanted a divorce. I wanted him out of the house by morning. She stopped and a shudder ran through her entire body, and? I prompted gently. And he laughed, Mom. He looked at all my evidence, all the proof I'd spent thousands of dollars gathering, and he laughed. Her eyes met mine and I saw terror there. Real, visceral terror. Then he picked up every single piece of paper, every photo, and he fed them into the shredder. One by one. While smiling at me. He destroyed the evidence, Robert said slowly. Not just the evidence. He destroyed everything. My laptop, my phone, my backup drive, he'd already gotten to all of it. Somehow he knew what I was planning. Knew I'd hired a pie. Knew everything. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. And then he told me that if I tried to divorce him, he'd destroy me completely, utterly, make me wish I'd never been born. A chill ran down my spine. That's just talk. Empty threats. Sarah, it's not empty, Mom. She grabbed my hand so hard it hurt. David's been planning this for over a year. Longer, maybe. He's been building a case against me. A case that I'm mentally unstable. The words didn't make sense. What are you talking about? He's been documenting everything. Emails I've sent that he's taken out of context to make me sound paranoid. Arguments we've had where he deliberately provoked me until I screamed, which he recorded. Conversations with our friends where he casually mentioned I'd been acting strangely. Even medical records, he somehow got my therapist's notes from 3 years ago when I was dealing with work stress. Robert was shaking his head. That's illegal. Doctor-patient confidentiality. Doesn't matter when your father-in-law is Judge William Hayes, who plays golf with half the medical board. Sarah's voice was hollow. David has statements from concerned colleagues at my work saying I've been erratic. He has a psychiatrist ready to testify I'm suffering from delusional disorder. He even has video footage from our home security system edited to make me look violent and unstable. I felt like I was falling, the world tilting beneath me. This can't be real. David wouldn't, he's always been so kind, so it's a mask, Mom, all of it. The charming husband, the successful lawyer, the devoted son-in-law, it's all an act. And tonight, when I confronted him, the mask slipped completely. She touched her eyebrow gingerly.
This is nothing.
He barely touched me. Just pushed me once and I hit the corner of the table. But he made sure it happened off camera. Why would he go to all this trouble? Robert demanded. If he wants to be with Rebecca, why not just divorce you cleanly? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was so soft I almost didn't hear her, because I'm pregnant. The world stopped. You single quotes read. I couldn't finish the sentence. 10 weeks. Her hand moved to her stomach protectively. I found out right before I discovered the affair. I was so happy, Mom. So excited to tell David we were finally going to be parents. I'd planned this whole surprise, his favorite dinner, candles, a little box with the sonogram inside. Oh, sweetheart, I breathed. I got home early from work to prepare everything. And that's when I found him. In our bedroom. On the phone with Rebecca. Planning the nursery for their baby. A sob broke through. He was talking about paint colors and cribs and names, and he sounded so excited. So in love. The way he'd never sounded with me, not even when we got married. Does he know? Robert asked. About your pregnancy? No, I never got the chance to tell him. I was so devastated by what I'd heard that I just drove around for hours. When I finally came home, he was gone. So I started investigating. That's when I found everything else. Dr. Martinez arrived, his medical bag in hand, still in his pajamas under his coat. He took one look at Sarah and his professional mask snapped into place. Tell me what happened, he said, already pulling out supplies to clean her wounds. While Martinez worked, Sarah continued her story. And with every word, my horror grew. David hadn't just been planning a divorce. He'd been planning something far worse. There's a life insurance policy on me, Sarah said as Martinez carefully cleaned the cut on her forehead. $2 million. I found the paperwork hidden in his office. It has a double indemnity clause, pays $4 million if I die accidentally. Jesus Christ, Robert whispered. And there's more. I found articles. News stories about 3 women who worked at David's law firm over the past 6 years. Sarah pulled out her phone with shaking hands. All 3 left the firm suddenly. No explanation, no forwarding information, just ... Gone. She showed us the phone screen. 3 names, 3 faces smiling in professional headshots. Jennifer Marks, car accident 6 months after leaving the firm. Single vehicle crash, ruled accidental. Amanda Stevens, overdose on prescription medication a year later. Ruled suicide. And Melissa Shun, she's still alive, but she's been in a psychiatric facility for the past 2 years. Her family says she had a complete mental breakdown. Became paranoid and delusional. The room was silent except for the sound of Martinez working. You think David did something to these women? I said slowly. I think David had affairs with them. Got them pregnant. And then made them disappear when they became inconvenient. Sarah's voice was flat, emotionless. I think he's done this before, probably with his father's help covering it up. And I think he's planning to do it to me. Martinez finished bandaging her forehead and sat back. Sarah, those are serious accusations. Do you have any proof? Just patterns, coincidences, and the fact that David told me tonight, very calmly, that if I tried to leave him, I would end up just like the others. She looked at each of us. He didn't explain what that meant. He didn't have to. A car pulled into our driveway. We all tensed through the window. I saw David's Mercedes. And he wasn't alone. 2 police officers were with him. No, Sarah whispered, going pale. No. He said he'd give me until morning. He promised, Sarah Hayes. David's voice called out, pleasant and concerned. Sweetheart, I know you're in there. I brought the police because I'm worried about you. You attacked me and ran off. I just want to make sure you're okay. That's a lie. Sarah hissed. He has security footage, Robert realized. He said he edited it. He's going to show them you attacking him. David knocked again. Grace? Robert? I hate to disturb you so late, but I'm very concerned about my wife's mental state. She's been having episodes lately, paranoid delusions, violent outbursts. Tonight she became convinced I was having an affair and attacked me. I have witnesses, video evidence, everything documented. I'm here with Officer Morrison and Officer Chun. We have a court order for an emergency psychiatric evaluation. Don't open that door, Sarah begged, grabbing my arm. Mom, please. Once they take me, I'm never coming back. David will make sure of it. Martinez pulled out his phone. I'm calling my father. He's a superior court judge.
He can block this. Will it be fast enough?
I asked. Looking at the door where David waited with his fake concern and his real police officers, Martinez was already dialing. I could hear the phone ringing once, twice, 3 times before a groggy voice answered. Dad, it's Paul. I need an emergency injunction. Yes, I know what time it is. This is life or death. Through the door, David's voice continued, sickeningly patient. I understand you want to protect Sarah, Grace, but she's sick. She needs help. The doctors at Memorial Hospital are excellent. They'll take good care of her. Mrs. Hayes, one of the officers called out. We're authorized to enter if necessary. Please open the door. The emergency room would be one thing, Martinez said quietly, phone still pressed to his ear. But Memorial's psychiatric ward? David's father sits on their board. He could keep Sarah there indefinitely. Sarah stood up, swaying slightly. The color had returned to her face, but it was the color of determination, not health. I'll go with them. If I resist, it proves I'm unstable. If I run, they'll hunt me down? At least if I cooperate, no. The word came out harder than I'd intended. There has to be another way. That's when I heard it. The sound of breaking glass from the back of the house. They're coming in anyway, Robert said. Already moving toward the back door, Sarah looked at me, and in her eyes I saw goodbye. Take care of yourself, Mom. And if something happens to me, ... Her hand moved to her stomach, just for a second. Make sure David never gets the baby. Promise me. I promise, but Sarah, footsteps in the hallway. The officers had entered through the back door, probably with David's keys. Of course he had keys. He'd thought of everything, Sarah Hayes. One of them appeared in the living room doorway, young and uncomfortable with the whole situation. Behind him, David stood in my kitchen wearing a perfectly crafted expression of concern and relief. Sarah, thank God, David said, moving forward. You have me so worried. Stay away from me, Sarah said, her voice surprisingly steady. See? David said to the officers, his voice dripping with false sadness. The paranoia. The hostility. This is exactly what her psychiatrist warned me about. What psychiatrist? I demanded. Sarah doesn't have a psychiatrist. Dr. Phillips has been treating her for 6 months, David said smoothly, pulling out papers. Here's his evaluation from this afternoon. Sarah has been experiencing delusions. She thinks I'm having an affair, that I'm trying to hurt her. All sorts of paranoid fantasies. Dr. Phillips recommended immediate inpatient treatment. I've never met anyone named Dr. Phillips in my life, Sarah said. But I could hear her voice starting to shake. This was exactly what David wanted for her to sound irrational, unstable. Sarah, it's okay to be confused, David said gently. That's part of the illness. Dr. Phillips explained this might happen. Show me his medical license, Martinez said suddenly. This Dr. Phillips. I want to see his credentials. David's smile didn't waver. Of course. I have everything here. Dr. Phillips is highly respected, practices out of the West Side Psychiatric Center, which is owned by your father's foundation, Martinez shot back. How convenient. My father's foundation owns many medical facilities. That doesn't make them illegitimate. David turned to the officers. Gentlemen, I have a court-ordered psychiatric hold, signed by Judge Matthews 3 hours ago. My wife needs help, and every minute we delay puts her in more danger. The older officer Morrison, based on his name tag, looked uncomfortable. Sir, if your wife is injured, shouldn't we take her to a regular hospital first? Get those wounds checked out. Dr. Martinez has already examined her, David said, gesturing to Martinez. Haven't you, doctor? Martinez's jaw clenched.
Yes, but then we can proceed directly to Memorial, unless ...
David's eyes gleamed. Unless Dr. Martinez is willing to put in writing that Sarah is mentally competent and doesn't require psychiatric evaluation. It was a trap, and we all knew it. If Martinez vouched for Sarah's mental health and something happened, if David's fabricated evidence made her look unstable, Martinez could lose his medical license. Martinez looked at his phone. My father is faxing an injunction now. It'll be here in 3 minutes. An injunction from Judge Martinez? David's smile widened. How interesting. Except my hold was signed by Judge Matthews, who outranks him. Actually, a new voice said from the doorway, I outrank them both. We all turned. A woman stood there, 50s, sharp-eyed, wearing a bathrobe over pajamas but radiating authority. Judge Teresa Martinez, she said, showing her identification to the stunned officers. I'm Paul's aunt. Superior Court, and I'm issuing an immediate stay on any psychiatric holds pending a full hearing tomorrow morning. David's face went from confident to furious in a heartbeat. I can, and I did. The paperwork is being filed as we speak. Judge Martinez walked into the room like she owned it. Now, officers, unless you want to be part of an unlawful detention lawsuit, I suggest you leave. The hold is suspended. The officers looked at each other, then at David, then at the judge. Morrison shook his head. This is above our pay grade. We're out. They left. David stood in my kitchen, his mask completely gone now. Pure rage twisted his features. This isn't over, he said quietly, looking directly at Sarah. You know that, right? You can hide behind judges and lawyers and your mother's skirts for now. But eventually you'll have to come home. And when you do... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. After he left, Sarah collapsed on the couch, shaking uncontrollably. Judge Martinez sat down beside her. You're safe for tonight, she said gently. But child, you need to understand what just happened. That was just the opening move. David's not going to stop. Men like him never do. Then what do I do? Sarah's voice was barely audible. We fight back, Martinez said. But first, you need to tell me everything. Every detail, no matter how small. Because I promise you David's already planning his next move. Sarah took a shaky breath. Okay, but there's something else. Something I haven't told anyone yet. We all looked at her. Tonight, before I came here, I went to David's office. He wasn't there. He was probably already planning this whole police thing. But I got into his computer. And I found files. Hidden files about those 3 women I mentioned, and she pulled out a USB drive from her pocket. I copied everything. Judge Martinez leaned forward. What kind of files? Medical records. Financial transactions. Emails between David and his father, and ... Sarah's hands were shaking so hard she almost dropped the drive. Insurance policies. All 3 women had life insurance policies taken out on them. All signed just weeks before they died or disappeared. The room went silent. That's premeditation, Robert breathed. That's murder. Or conspiracy to commit murder at minimum, Martinez agreed. She took the USB drive carefully. Sarah, this is evidence of serious crimes. We need to turn this over to the police immediately. David's father knows half the police force, Sarah protested. Then we go federal? FBI, Attorney General, someone outside the local jurisdiction. Martinez stood up. But first, we need to get you somewhere safe. Somewhere David can't reach you. Where? I asked. He knows where we live. He probably knows all our friends. All our family. That's when Sarah's phone rang. We all stared at it. Unknown number. Don't answer it, Robert said immediately, but Sarah was already reaching for it. What if it's important? What if, she answered. Put it on speaker, Sarah? A woman's voice, young and frightened. This is Rebecca. His girlfriend. The one who's pregnant. The one who destroyed my daughter's marriage. The one carrying my son-in-law's baby. Why are you calling me? Sarah's voice was ice. Because I think we're both in danger. I found something tonight. Something about David that you need to know, please. I know you have no reason to trust me, but her voice broke. I think he's planning to kill both of us. Sarah looked at me, then at Judge Martinez, then back at the phone. Where are you? Outside your parents' house. In my car. I've been sitting here for 20 minutes trying to work up the courage to knock. Rebecca's voice was shaking. I saw David leave with the police. I saw what he's doing to you. How did you know where to find me? David's been tracking your phone. He knows everywhere you go. A pause. He doesn't know I know that. He thinks I'm home asleep. Judge Martinez gestured for silence, then pointed at me and Robert. She was right, we needed to be careful. This could be another trap. What did you find? Sarah asked carefully. Not over the phone. David might be listening to this call.
Can I?
Can I come in, please? I looked at Martinez, who shook her head firmly. Too risky. But Sarah was already standing. Use the back door. It's unlocked. Come alone, Sarah, I started. Mom, if she knows something about David's plans, we need to hear it. And if this is a trap? She laughed bitterly. Then at least we'll know for sure. We waited in tense silence. Dr. Martinez Paul, not his aunt, positioned himself by the back door, ready to block anyone else who might try to follow Rebecca inside. Robert grabbed a baseball bat from the hall closet. Judge Martinez called someone on her phone, speaking in low, urgent tones. The back door opened slowly. Rebecca stepped inside, and I got my first look at David's mistress. She was young. So young, 24, Sarah had said, but she could have passed for 20. Blonde hair, expensive clothes, designer purse, and very obviously pregnant, maybe 6 months along based on her size. She looked terrified. Thank you, she whispered, closing the door behind her. Thank you for letting me in. Talk fast, Sarah said coldly. Before I change my mind. Rebecca sat down at the kitchen table, her hands shaking as she pulled out a laptop from her purse. I need to tell you something first. Something you deserve to know. That you're sleeping with my husband. Sarah's voice could have cut glass. That I was stupid enough to believe him when he said he loved me. Rebecca's laugh was broken. He told me you were separating. That the marriage had been over for years. That you'd agreed to divorce quietly. I actually felt bad for him, trapped in a loveless marriage with a woman who didn't appreciate him. Let me guess, Sarah said. He was waiting for the right time to tell you the truth. He said he was protecting me from you. That you were unstable, possibly violent. That he needed to build a case for divorce before he could leave. Rebecca looked up, tears streaming down her face. I believed every word. I'm so stupid. You're 24 and he's a skilled manipulator, Judge Martinez said quietly. That doesn't make you stupid, just dumb. Rebecca wiped her eyes. 2 weeks ago I started feeling sick. Not normal pregnancy sick, really sick. David said it was probably just stress, but he made me an appointment with a specialist. Drove me there himself. Very attentive, very concerned. I felt cold dread building in my stomach. They gave me an injection. Said it was vitamins for the baby. I woke up 3 days later in my apartment with the worst pain I've ever felt. And I was bleeding. Her voice cracked. I miscarried, Sarah. My baby died. Oh my God, I breathed. David was devastated. Or he acted devastated. Held me while I cried, told me we'd try again, that these things happen. Rebecca opened the laptop with shaking hands. But tonight I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that appointment, about how strange it felt. So I went through David's computer. He'd left it unlocked, which he never does. And I found this. She turned the screen toward us. Medical bills. From the specialist David had taken her to. Except the specialist wasn't an obstetrician. It was an abortion clinic. And the bill wasn't for prenatal vitamins. It was for a forced termination of pregnancy. The room spun. I grabbed the edge of the table to steady myself. He killed your baby, Sarah whispered. Without your consent. Without your knowledge. There's more. Rebecca scrolled through files. I found his banking records. Payments to the clinic? But not just for me. There are 3 other payments. 3 other women. All in the past 6 years. The 3 women from David's firm. Jennifer, Amanda, Melissa.
He did this to them too, Robert said, his voice hollow, and worse.
Rebecca pulled up another file. Death certificates. Amanda Stevens, the one who died of an overdose. The medication she took was prescribed by David's personal physician. Same physician who gave me the vitamins. He's not licensed anymore. But he still practices under the table for the right price. Where is all this coming from? Judge Martinez asked, her legal mind already working. How did David have access to these women's medical records? His father. Judge Hayes has connections everywhere. He's been covering for David for years, maybe decades. Rebecca looked at Sarah. You're not the first wife. You're the third. What? David was married twice before you. Both marriages ended in divorce after the wives had mental breakdowns. Both women signed away all rights to assets, custody of any future children, everything. Both received small settlements and moved away. And both. Rebecca's voice dropped to a whisper. Both died within 2 years of their divorces. One car accident, one suicide. 5 women. 5 women David had destroyed. And Sarah was supposed to be number 6. Why are you telling me this? Sarah asked. Why help me after? After everything? Because I just realized I'm number 7. Rebecca pulled up one more file. I found this an hour ago. It's an insurance policy on me. $2 million. Beneficiary, David Hayes, signed 3 months ago with a forged signature, my signature. But I never signed anything like this. Her hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the mouse. He's planning to kill me too. After he kills you. We're both inconvenient. We both know too much. And once we're gone, he'll find another young paralegal, spin another story, start the whole cycle over again. We need to call the FBI, Judge Martinez said immediately. This is interstate murder, conspiracy, fraud. With what evidence? Rebecca asked bitterly. Everything on this laptop? David will say I faked it. I'm a scorned mistress trying to frame him. The insurance policy? He'll say I took it out myself and forged his signature. The medical bills? Doctor-patient confidentiality. He's thought of everything. The medical records aren't protected if they show crimes were committed, Martinez argued. Prove the crimes were committed. Prove David knew what the doctor was doing. Prove the women didn't consent. It's all hearsay and circumstantial evidence. Rebecca closed the laptop. I've been thinking about this all night. The only way to stop David is to catch him in the act. To make him confess on tape. To trap him the way he's been trapping women for years. That's too dangerous, I said immediately. It's the only way. Rebecca looked at Sarah. I know you hate me. You have every right to. But we're in this together now. And if we don't work together, we're both dead. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then, what's your plan? For the next hour, Rebecca laid out what she'd been thinking. It was risky, complicated, and required perfect timing. But it might be the only chance we had. The plan was simple in theory. Make David think he'd won. That Sarah was helpless, trapped, about to be institutionalized. That Rebecca was back under his control. Get him comfortable enough to let his guard down. And then record him confessing to everything.
He's arrogant, Rebecca said.
Especially when he thinks he's untouchable. If I tell him I want to work with him, that I'll help him get rid of you in exchange for ... She touched her stomach. In exchange for another chance at a baby. He might believe it. That's insane, Robert protested. If he suspects for even a second that you're setting him up, then I die. I know, Rebecca's voice was steady. But I'm going to die anyway if we don't stop him. At least this way, maybe I take him down with me. There has to be another way, I insisted. There isn't. Judge Martinez had been quiet, thinking. Rebecca's right. We don't have enough evidence to arrest him. Even with everything on that laptop, a good lawyer and David's father will hire the best could cast reasonable doubt. But if we have David on tape admitting to murder, how do we even get him to confess? Sarah asked. He's too smart for that. Is he? Rebecca looked at her. Or is he just arrogant? Every time he's done this before, he's gotten away with it. 5 women dead or destroyed, and he's never faced consequences. That makes people sloppy. Or more careful, Robert pointed out. There's another option, Dr. Martinez said quietly. He'd been silent, just listening. Now everyone turned to him. We don't need David to confess to everything. We just need him to confess to one thing. Something we can prove he lied about. I don't follow, I said. The affair. David's been claiming Sarah is delusional about the affair, right? That it doesn't exist. But if we can get him on tape admitting the affair is real, admitting Rebecca exists, admitting the pregnancy was real before he terminated it. Paul looked at Rebecca. That proves he's been lying. Which opens the door to questioning everything else he's said. It's a start, Judge Martinez agreed. But we need more than that for murder charges. Then we get greedy, Rebecca said. We get him talking about the insurance policies. About the other women. We make him think I'm with him, that I'm helping him. And we get him to explain the whole plan. While wearing a wire, Paul added. I'll do it, Rebecca said immediately. No, Sarah spoke up. We'll both do it. Everyone stared at her. Sarah, absolutely not, I said. You're pregnant. You're injured. You're the target, Sarah finished. David's entire plan revolves around getting me into a psychiatric facility. So let's give him what he wants. Or make him think he's getting it. I check myself into a facility voluntarily. Clean, reputable, no connection to David's father. I get evaluated by independent doctors who'll document I'm completely sane. And meanwhile? Judge Martinez asked. Meanwhile, Rebecca goes to David, tells him she knows about his plans. That she wants in. That she help him get me institutionalized permanently in exchange for ... Sarah looked at Rebecca. What would he believe you want? Money, Rebecca said immediately. David thinks everyone has a price. If I tell him I want $500,000 and a promise he'll leave me alone after you're dead, he'll believe it. The word dead hung in the air. This is insane, Robert said again. You're talking about Sarah voluntarily going into a psychiatric facility while David's planning to have her killed. What if he gets to her there? What if I'll be there, Paul said. I'll stay with her. 24/7 if necessary. And I'll have federal agents ready to move the second we have enough evidence, Judge Martinez added. She held up her phone. I've been texting with FBI Special Agent Morrison. She's been investigating the Hayes family for corruption. If we can give her evidence of murder, she can arrest them both, David and his father. How long would this take? I asked. 3 days, Rebecca said. Maybe 4. Long enough for Sarah to get her psychiatric evaluation showing she's sane. Long enough for me to convince David I'm on his side. And long enough for him to tell me the plan. 4 days of my daughter being in danger. 4 days versus a lifetime of looking over her shoulder. Judge Martinez interrupted. Because if we don't stop David now with evidence that will hold up in court, he'll never stop hunting Sarah, or the baby. She was right. I hated it, but she was right. Sarah looked at me. Mom, I have to do this. I know, I whispered. I know. The next morning, I drove Sarah to Pine Haven Psychiatric Center. It was on the other side of the city, clean and professional. With no connection to David's father's foundation. Sarah checked herself involuntarily for evaluation. The intake nurse was kind, explaining the process, assuring me Sarah was in good hands. We'll take excellent care of her, she said as I hugged Sarah goodbye. 3 days, I whispered. Just 3 days. I can do 3 days, Sarah whispered back. But her eyes said, what if 3 days isn't enough? I drove home in a daze. The house felt empty without Sarah, without knowing if she was safe, when I pulled into the driveway. David's car was waiting. He was on my porch again. Perfectly dressed in a suit despite the early hour. Drinking coffee from a travel mug like we were neighbors having a friendly chat. Grace, he said pleasantly. I heard Sarah checked herself into Pine Haven. That's a good first step. I'm glad she's getting help. Stay away from my daughter. I'm her husband. I have every right. You have no rights. I moved to walk past him, but he blocked my path. Actually, I have all the rights. I spoke with the hospital administrator this morning. Explained the situation. They've agreed to give me daily visit privileges as Sarah's spouse and primary caregiver. My blood ran cold. You can't, I can. And I will. In fact, I'm heading there right after this conversation. He smiled. I want to make sure she's comfortable. That she's getting the right medications. The right care. If you touch her, Grace, please. I'm not going to hurt her. I love her. The way he said it so sincere would have fooled anyone. I just want her to get better. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. Also, I wanted to give you these. Divorce papers. Sarah signs them, gives up all claims to assets and any future children. Future children? I interrupted. What are you talking about? David's eyes gleamed. Oh, she didn't tell you. How unfortunate. Well, I suppose it doesn't matter now. The point is, Sarah signs these papers, she gets $50,000 and walks away. Clean break, or... He leaned in closer. Or I make sure she never leaves that psychiatric facility. I have doctors there, Grace, good doctors who owe me favors. One signature on a commitment order, and Sarah disappears for years. You're threatening to institutionalize my pregnant daughter. Pregnant? David's mask slipped for just a second, confusion, then understanding, then rage crossing his face. I see. How interesting. And here I thought she was just gaining weight. He laughed, but it was an ugly sound. Well, that changes everything. Thank you for telling me, Grace. I'd made a catastrophic mistake. I'd confirmed Sarah's pregnancy. David's smile was triumphant now. 48 hours. That's how long the offer stands. After that, he shrugged. After that, Sarah loses everything. Including that baby you just told me about. He left whistling. I called Rebecca immediately.
He knows.
About the pregnancy. I told him by accident. It's okay, Rebecca said, but her voice was tense. It might actually help. Make him feel more urgent, more likely to talk about his plans. I'm meeting him in 2 hours. Are you ready? I have to be... A pause. Detective Park gave me a wire. She's positioning agents nearby. If David says anything incriminating, they'll move in immediately. Be careful. Too late for that. I spent the day pacing, unable to eat. Unable to think about anything except Sarah in that facility and Rebecca walking into David's trap. Judge Martinez called twice with updates. The FBI was involved now, officially investigating the Hayes family. But they needed time to build a case. Time we might not have. At 3 p.m. my phone rang. Unknown number, Mom? Sarah's voice, but wrong. Slurred, confused. Mom, something's wrong. Sarah? What happened? Are you okay? They gave me something. Pills. Said it was routine. Part of the evaluation. But I feel... Her voice trailed off. I feel really strange. And A pause. I'm bleeding, Mom. I can't feel the baby. Terror clawed at my throat. I'm coming right now. Don't move, don't. The line went dead. I tried calling back. No answer. I called Pinehaven directly. This is Grace Hayes. My daughter Sarah was admitted this morning. I need to speak with her doctor immediately. I'm sorry, ma'am, but visiting hours don't start until 5. And patients aren't allowed phone calls during initial evaluation. My daughter just called me. She said she's bleeding. She might be having a medical emergency. Let me check with the nurses' station. A pause that felt like hours. Ma'am, according to our records, your daughter is resting comfortably. She hasn't made any phone calls. She's sleeping peacefully. That's impossible. She just called me 3 minutes ago. Perhaps you misunderstood. Or perhaps someone is playing a prank. Either way, I assure you, your daughter is fine. I hung up and immediately called Judge Martinez. Someone called me pretending to be Sarah, or maybe it really was Sarah and the hospital is lying. Either way, something's wrong. Don't go there, Martinez said immediately. It could be a trap. David might be trying to get you to make a scene at the hospital, prove you're unstable too. But what if she really is in trouble? Paul is there. He's watching her. If anything was wrong, he'd call. But she didn't sound certain. I called Paul, straight to voicemail. Something was very wrong. Against Martinez's warnings, I got in my car and drove to Pinehaven. I had to see Sarah with my own eyes. Had to know she was okay. The hospital was quiet when I arrived. Too quiet for a busy psychiatric facility. I went in through the emergency entrance. Flashing my visitor badge from earlier, took the elevator to the 3rd floor. The hallway was empty. No nurses, no security, no other patients. My heart pounded as I walked to Sarah's room. The door was slightly open. I pushed it wider. Sarah was in the bed, but something was wrong. She was too still, her breathing too shallow. An IV drip I didn't remember seeing earlier was attached to her arm, and sitting beside her bed. Sleeves rolled to the elbows, A man in a white coat filled a syringe from a vial. His name tag read Dr. Phillips. I froze. The fluid inside the syringe caught the fluorescent light. Amber, not clear. What are you injecting her with? He didn't answer. Just tapped the syringe, pushed out one perfect bead, and reached for Sarah's IV line. Stop, I said, stepping forward. He turned slow, calm, eyes glassy, voice flat. Routine medication. That IV's new, I said. Who authorized it? He smiled faintly. You wouldn't understand. My hand hit the call button behind me. Alarms flashed red above the door. Footsteps thundered down the hall. Dr. Phillips pivoted back to the line, thumb tightening on the plunger. Drop it. Detective Park's voice cracked the air as she stormed in, weapon raised. He froze. The syringe trembled between his fingers. Hands where I can see them. Park shouted, now.
He hesitated, calculating, eyes flicking from the syringe to Sarah. Her monitors began to spike.
Alarms wailing. Do it, and you die, Park warned. The room hung in silence. The only sound Sarah's faltering pulse. He twitched, the decision made, and lunged. Park fired. The bullet hit Phillips in the shoulder, spinning him around. The syringe flew from his hand, shattering against the wall. Clear liquid spread across the floor. Officers swarmed in, securing Phillips, calling for medical. Park went immediately to Sarah, checking her pulse. She's alive. Vitals are weak but steady. Call for a real doctor, now. Sarah's eyes fluttered open. Mom, I'm there, baby. You're okay? The baby is fine, a nurse said, rushing in with equipment. Let me check you both. While medical staff worked on Sarah, Park pulled me aside. How did you know? I asked. How did you know he'd be here? Rebecca. Park held up her phone. She met with David an hour ago. Wearing a wire. He told her everything about Phillips. About the plan to inject Sarah with something that would cause a miscarriage and, within a week, heart failure. Rebecca got it all on tape. Where is she now? Where's David? Being arrested as we speak. Him and his father both. Park's smile was grim. Rebecca played her part perfectly. Made David think she was helping him. He got cocky, told her the whole plan. How many times he'd done it before. How he'd get away with it again. It's really over? The arrests are over. The trial will take time. But yes, David's not hurting anyone ever again. I looked at Sarah, now surrounded by medical staff, the dangerous IV removed, her color slowly returning. She's going to be okay, the nurse said. Both of them. The baby's heartbeat is strong. I sat down heavily, only realizing then that my legs were shaking too hard to stand. You saved her life, Park said. If you hadn't come when you did, if you hadn't pushed past our warnings. I'm her mother, I said simply. There's nothing I wouldn't do. 3 hours later, Sarah was moved to a regular hospital room. Not psychiatric, just a regular room with flowers already arriving from friends who'd heard what happened. The story was spreading. Charming lawyer David Hayes arrested for attempted murder. His father, Judge William Hayes, arrested for conspiracy and corruption. A web of lies and death spanning nearly a decade. Finally unraveled. Rebecca came to visit that night, escorted by Detective Park. She looked exhausted, drained, but also lighter somehow. Like she'd been carrying a weight, and finally set it down. I'm sorry, she said from the doorway, not quite entering. For everything. For the affair, for believing his lies, for not seeing who he really was until it was almost too late. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Thank you, she said finally. For risking your life to save mine. I didn't do it to be noble. Rebecca's smile was sad. I did it because I'm selfish. Because I wanted to live. And the only way to survive David was to destroy him first. Still, you didn't have to warn me. You could have run, disappeared, started over somewhere else. No, I couldn't. Because there is no somewhere else when Judge Hayes has connections everywhere. And because Rebecca touched her stomach, still flat now that the pregnancy was gone. Because my baby deserved justice. All our babies did. She didn't stay long. Just long enough to give Sarah a USB drive with copies of everything she'd found on David's computer. Insurance, she said, in case his lawyers try anything. After she left, Sarah turned to me. Do you think I'll ever be able to forgive her? I don't know, I said honestly. Forgiveness isn't about what other people deserve. It's about what you need to heal. Maybe someday. Maybe never. Either way is okay. I'm so tired, Mom. Sarah's eyes were closing. Tired of being scared. Tired of looking over my shoulder. Tired of wondering if this nightmare will ever really end. It's ending, I promised. David's locked up. His father's locked up. They can't hurt you anymore, can't they? She looked at me with those haunted eyes. What about the trial? What about all the people who will testify on David's behalf, saying he's a good man who made mistakes? What about the lawyers who will try to make me look crazy? Then we tell the truth, I said firmly. Every horrible bit of it. And we trust that justice will win. But I wasn't sure I believed my own words. But I had to try. The next morning, Detective Park arrived with news that made my blood run cold. David posted bail, she said quietly, closing Sarah's hospital room door behind her. What? Robert was on his feet. How is that possible? He tried to kill her. His lawyers argued he's not a flight risk prominent attorney, lifelong resident, strong community ties. And Judge Warren different judge than his father set bail at $5 million. David's family paid it in cash. So he's just out there. Sarah's voice was small, terrified. Under house arrest with ankle monitor. He can't leave his property, can't contact you or any witnesses. But yes, technically he's free until trial, which is when? I demanded. 6 months. Maybe longer if his lawyers file delays. 6 months of looking over our shoulders. 6 months of knowing David was out there, planning, scheming, finding new ways to hurt us. There's something else, Park continued. Judge Hayes also made bail. Different judge, different amount, but same result. Both of them are home right now. This is insane, Robert exploded. They tried to murder Sarah multiple women. How are they not rotting in jail? Because they're rich and connected, Park said bluntly. Because the system protects people like them.
I'm sorry.
I wish I had better news. After she left, Sarah sat in her hospital bed, arms wrapped around herself despite the warm room. He's coming for me, she whispered. House arrest won't stop him. He'll find a way. We won't let him get near you, I promised. But even as I said it, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered, Grace. David's voice smooth and pleasant as always. I heard Sarah's feeling better. That's wonderful news. If you call here again, I'm not calling to threaten anyone. Just wanted you to know I'm sorry. For everything. The affair, the misunderstanding about my intentions, all of it. I was wrong. I almost laughed. Misunderstanding? You tried to kill her. That's what the prosecution claims. But Grace, you're a smart woman. You know how these things work? It's all he said, she said. Rebecca's testimony? She's an unstable ex-girlfriend seeking revenge. Dr. Phillips? A rogue doctor acting on his own. By the time this goes to trial, there'll be so much reasonable doubt that... I hung up. My hands were shaking. Because he was right. David was already building his defense, poking holes in our case. Preparing to walk free. Sarah had heard the whole thing on speaker. He's going to win, isn't he? He's going to find some loophole, some technicality, and he's going to get away with everything. No, but my voice lacked conviction. That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about David, free on bail, planning his next move. About Judge Hayes, pulling strings behind the scenes. About 5 women dead and David preparing to walk free. At 2 a.m., I got out of bed and went to the kitchen. Made coffee I didn't want. Sat in the dark trying to figure out what to do next. That's when I heard it. The sound of gravel crunching in our driveway. I looked out the window. A car was parked on the street, engine running, lights off. My blood froze. Someone was watching the house. I called 911, but even as I did, I knew. By the time police arrived, the car would be gone. And even if they caught whoever it was, What proof did we have they were connected to David? This was psychological warfare. David reminding us he could reach us any time. The car stayed for exactly 5 minutes. Then drove away slowly, deliberately. Police arrived 10 minutes later. Took a report? Promised to increase patrols in our neighborhood, but I knew it wouldn't matter. David had already made his point. You're never safe. I'm always watching. Sarah was released from the hospital 2 days later. We brought her home to our house. She refused to go back to the house she'd shared with David. Even though technically it was half hers. I can't, she said simply. Too many memories. Too much pain. She moved into her old bedroom. It still had posters from high school, books from college. She was 32 years old and living with her parents like a teenager. But none of us cared about pride anymore. We only cared about survival. Rebecca called a week later. I'm leaving, she said without preamble. Getting on a plane tonight. Going somewhere David can't find me. Where? Sarah asked. Better you don't know. That way you can't tell anyone, even accidentally. A pause. I've given Detective Park everything I have. All my testimony is recorded, notarized, ready for trial. I'll come back if they need me to testify in person. But until then, I can't stay here. I feel him watching me constantly. I understood. I felt it too. After Rebecca hung up, Judge Martinez called. The FBI wants to talk to you and Sarah tomorrow. They found something. Something about David's past that might change everything. What is it? They'll explain tomorrow. But Grace? Her voice was grave. You need to prepare yourself. And Sarah, because what they found. It's worse than we thought. That night I barely slept again. Kept thinking about Martinez's words. Worse than we thought. How could it possibly be worse? The next morning, Sarah and I went to the FBI field office. Special Agent Morrison met us in a stark conference room with no windows and no warmth. Thank you for coming, she said, gesturing to chairs. I know this has been difficult. I'm going to make it more difficult. But you deserve to know the truth. She opened a folder. Inside were photos. Women's faces. I counted quickly. 8 women, all young, all attractive. These are women who had relationships with David Hayes over the past 15 years, Morrison said. We've been investigating for 3 years. Ever since Jennifer Marks's family hired a private investigator who brought their concerns to us. 15 years? Sarah whispered. But we've only been married 7... David was doing this long before he met you. Probably since he was in his 20s. Morrison pointed to each photo. All of these women had affairs with David, all got pregnant. And all of them either died, disappeared, or ended up institutionalized. 8 women. 8 victims. And Sarah would have been number 9. How did we not know? I asked. How did no one notice a pattern? Because David and his father were careful. Different cities, different jurisdictions, years between incidents. No one was looking at the big picture until recently. Morrison's expression hardened. But we're looking now. And we found enough evidence to file federal charges, interstate murder conspiracy, racketeering, fraud, obstruction of justice. The charges that already exist? Those are just the beginning. Will it be enough to convict him? Sarah asked. Honestly? I don't know. David has good lawyers. His father has even better connections. But we're building an airtight case. And we have something David doesn't expect. What? Morrison smiled grimly. 2 of those women you thought were dead? They're alive. In witness protection. And they're ready to testify. Amanda Stevens, supposedly dead from an overdose, was alive? She'd faked her death with FBI help 3 years ago when she realized David was planning to kill her. Melissa Chun wasn't actually in a psychiatric facility. She'd been in witness protection, pretending to be institutionalized while gathering evidence. They've been working with us for years, Morrison explained, helping us build a case against the Hayes family. And now with Sarah's testimony and Rebecca's evidence, we finally have enough. Why didn't you tell us? I demanded. We've been terrified, thinking David was going to get away with everything, because we weren't sure you'd be believable if you knew. We needed genuine fear, genuine emotion. If David suspected you knew we had additional witnesses, he might have run or destroyed evidence. Morrison looked at Sarah. I'm sorry we kept you in the dark. But it was necessary. Sarah was staring at the photos. Can I meet them? Amanda and Melissa? Eventually. Right now, they're in secure locations preparing for trial. But they both asked me to tell you something. Morrison consulted her notes. Amanda said, tell Sarah she's stronger than she knows. Surviving David isn't easy. Living afterward is harder. But it's worth it, and Melissa said, tell Sarah I'm sorry I couldn't help her sooner. But I'm here now. We all are. David doesn't get to win anymore. Tears were streaming down Sarah's face. I thought I was alone. I thought no one would believe me. You were never alone, Morrison said gently. We've been watching David for 3 years. When you hired that private investigator and started gathering evidence, we knew. We've been protecting you without you knowing it. Then why did you let David get so close to killing me? Sarah's voice rose. Why let it get that far? Because we needed him to act. We needed undeniable evidence of his intent. I know that sounds cold. But if we'd arrested him earlier, his lawyers would have torn our case apart.
Now? Morrison's smile was sharp.
Now we have him on video discussing murder. We have Rebecca's testimony. We have Dr. Phillips willing to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence. And we have 2 dead women ready to walk into that courtroom and destroy his entire defense. She closed the folder. David Hayes is going to prison for the rest of his life. I guarantee it. For the first time in weeks, I felt something like hope, but that hope shattered 3 days later when Detective Park called at 3 a.m. David's ankle monitor went off. He's gone. And Judge Hayes is gone too. The FBI thinks they've fled the country. The next 12 hours were chaos. FBI agents swarmed David's house, finding it empty except for the ankle monitor cut off and left on the kitchen table. Judge Hayes's house was similarly empty. They had this planned, Morrison said grimly. Probably from the moment they made bail. All those delays, all that cooperation, it was just buying time to set up an escape route. Where would they go? Robert asked. Dozens of countries with no extradition treaty. David has money hidden in offshore accounts. We found evidence of that. He could disappear for years. So he wins, Sarah said flatly. After everything, he just walks away. No. Morrison's voice was steel. He runs. There's a difference. We've issued international warrants. Interpol is involved. Every border crossing, every airport, his face is flagged. And Judge Hayes is 72 years old with a heart condition. He needs medication, medical care. They can't run forever. But days turned into weeks with no sign of them. It was like they'd vanished into thin air. Sarah grew more withdrawn. She was 4 months pregnant now, her belly just starting to show. But instead of glowing, she looked haunted. What if he comes back? She asked one night. What if he's just waiting until I let my guard down? We won't let our guard down, I promised. But I was exhausted too. Exhausted from fear, from vigilance, from the constant weight of wondering when David would strike next. My phone buzzed. Rebecca. 6 weeks of silence. And now her name lit my screen. He made contact, she said, voice low, rushed. A secure line. He wants me to join him. New identities, offshore accounts.
He thinks I'll still run with him. Where is he?
Morocco, Marrakesh. He's using a shell company to move the money. He needs one final transfer, and he wants me to bring the authorization codes in person. Rebecca, that's suicide. No, it's bait. The FBI is ready. Morrison traced the account. If David logs in, they'll have exact coordinates. A pause. Grace. If I don't make it back, tell Sarah she was right about me. I'm not running anymore. The line went dead. For 12 hours we heard nothing. Then Park called. We got them. My knees buckled.
How? Rebecca met him in Marrakesh.
He showed up with his father, smug, careless, thinking he'd already escaped. When he opened the laptop to verify the transfer, Interpol agents moved in. David tried to grab a gun. Judge Hayes collapsed. Massive heart attack before they reached the van. Park exhaled. Rebecca's safe. The arrest is clean. Extradition paperwork's already in motion. The room spun.
He's caught, Robert breathed.
They actually caught him. Sarah was crying. Is it really over? Is he really in custody? Park confirmed on the phone. The extradition will take time, couple of weeks, maybe a month. But he's not going anywhere. Morocco has him locked up tight. And his father is dead? I asked. Heart attack. By the time they got him to a hospital, it was too late. Park's voice was neutral, but I heard the satisfaction underneath. David tried to run with a sick old man. It killed him. Poetic justice, maybe. Or just life catching up with people who'd caused so much death. David was extradited 6 weeks later. His trial began 3 months after that. By then, Sarah was 7 months pregnant. Glowing despite everything she'd been through, I sat in the courtroom every day, watching as the prosecution laid out their case. Rebecca testified, her voice steady despite obvious fear. Amanda and Melissa testified, risen from the dead to tell their stories. Dr. Phillips testified about everything David had paid him to do. And Sarah testified. For 4 hours, she told the jury everything: the affair, the gaslighting, the insurance policies, the plan to kill her. She never wavered, never broke, never let David's lawyers intimidate her. David sat at the defense table looking smaller somehow. Less imposing. His expensive suit couldn't hide the fact that he'd lost weight in custody. That his hair was thinning, that he looked every day of his 40 years and more. When Sarah finished testifying, she looked directly at him. You tried to destroy me, she said quietly. You almost succeeded. But I'm still here. I'm alive. I'm having my baby. And you'll spend the rest of your life in prison, knowing you failed. The jury deliberated for 2 days. Guilty. On all counts. The judge sentenced him to life without parole. As they led him away in handcuffs. David looked at Sarah one last time. Whatever he saw in her face made him flinch. Because Sarah wasn't scared anymore. She was free. 2 months later, I held my granddaughter for the first time. Grace Sarah Hayes, named for both her mother and grandmother. She's perfect, I whispered, looking down at her tiny, angry, red face. She's loud, Sarah laughed, wincing as the baby's screams echoed through the hospital room. Definitely got my temper. And your strength, I said. She's going to need it. Being raised by a woman as strong as you. I learned from the best. Sarah took the baby back, and I watched as Grace immediately quieted, recognizing her mother's heartbeat, her voice, over the next year. Sarah rebuilt her life piece by piece. She got her own apartment, small but sunny, with a room for Grace decorated in yellows and greens. She went back to work part-time, found a therapist who specialized in trauma, joined a support group for domestic violence survivors, and slowly, so slowly I sometimes worried it would never happen, she started to heal. Rebecca came back for the sentencing. She'd been living in Canada, building a new life far from David's shadow. She and Sarah had coffee once, an awkward meeting where they circled around everything that had happened without quite addressing it. Thank you, Sarah said finally, for saving my life. Thank you for forgiving me, Rebecca replied. Even though I don't deserve it. Maybe none of us deserve forgiveness, Sarah said. Maybe we just need it to move forward. They didn't become friends. The affair was too big a betrayal for that. But they made peace with each other. And sometimes that's enough. Jennifer Marks was released from the psychiatric facility after David's conviction. The evaluation that had committed her was ruled fraudulent, procured through Judge Hayes' corruption. She moved back home with her family, started therapy, began the long process of reclaiming her life. Amanda and Melissa stayed in witness protection. But they sent letters to Sarah, stories of survival, of building lives after trauma, of the slow, hard work of healing. And Sarah saved every letter, put them in a box labeled Warriors that she kept on her bookshelf. For Grace, she explained, when she's older. So she knows that women can survive anything. That we're stronger than any man who tries to break us. 2 years after that terrible night when Sarah collapsed bleeding at my door, we had Sunday dinner. Just family, Robert and me, Sarah and Grace, and Detective Park, who'd become a friend. Grace was toddling around, getting into everything, laughing her infectious belly laugh every time she knocked something over. She's fearless, Park observed, watching as Grace climbed onto a chair she'd been told 3 times to stay off. She's her mother's daughter, I said. Sarah picked up Grace, swinging her around despite her protests. You, she said to her daughter, are going to be trouble. I can tell already.
Good, Robert said.
The world needs more troublemakers. More women who won't accept what men tell them they should accept. More women who fight back, Sarah agreed. She looked at me over Grace's head. More women like my mother, who moved heaven and earth to save me when I couldn't save myself. Any mother would have, I started. No, Sarah cut me off. Not any mother. You didn't give up when I pushed you away. You didn't stop fighting when David tried to turn everyone against us. You believed me when no one else would. You saved my life, Mom. You and Detective Park and Rebecca and all the women who refused to let David win. She sat Grace down, and the toddler immediately ran to me, climbing into my lap with sticky hands and a chocolate-smeared face. And now it's my turn, Sarah said. My turn to raise Grace to be strong. To teach her that no man gets to control her, hurt her, silence her. To show her that women survive. We endure, we fight, and we win. To women who fight, Park said, raising her wine glass. To women who survive, Sarah added. To women who save each other, I finished. We drank to that. To survival and strength and the unbreakable bonds between mothers and daughters. Later that night, the house fell silent. In the kitchen, I washed the last glass by hand, watching tiny ripples fade across the sink. Upstairs, Sarah's laughter drifted through the air, soft, tired, real. I looked at the window. The same darkness that once terrified us now reflected 3 silhouettes. Mother, daughter, child, for the first time in years. It didn't look like a threat. It looked like peace. In the end, it wasn't revenge that saved them. It was truth. Because sometimes the only way to win is to survive. If this story moved you, tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these voices travel. And don't forget to subscribe. It helps me keep sharing stories that deserve to be heard.